Welcome to the Really 007 podcast for this special interview with none other than Andreas Wisniewski, best known to Bond fans, of course, for playing the master henchman Necros in The Living Daylights. You can find us and listen in on iTunes and Spotify, and of course now YouTube, and we're on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. With me today are Mr. Chris Goldie and Math Pickup, who I'm sure are thrilled to be in the presence of Bond royalty.
Absolutely.
And of course, we've got Andreas, who joins us live from Berlin. So another international podcast experience we're having here. Only an hour different, though, so it's not too bad. So yes, aside from appearing in what we regard as one of the finest Bond films, we're all massive Timothy Dalton fans. Andreas has made many appearances on film and TV, including Die Hard, 2 Mission Impossible films, Centurion, and the British dramas Ultimate Force and The Bill, which I'm sure many people know him from as well. And he was also in, Andreas, I believe you, in the music videos for Elton John's Nikita and Bananarama's Venus. 2 number ones in the UK. So this is all... Yeah, I did look that up, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, massive songs. And yeah, look at your CV, you've appeared alongside some obviously massive actors like Bruce Willis, of course, James Coburn, Gabriel Byrne. I didn't know this. Fellow Bond actress Olga Kurylenko, who was in Quantum of Solace. I believe you've starred with her, yeah. Of course.
Well, she was in, but I didn't actually meet her.
Ah, right. Didn't share any scenes. No. Yeah, so I was saying a lot of these actors you've appeared alongside. You were saying you've obviously been with Tom Cruise in, was it the 1st and the 4th Mission Impossible films?
Yep, that was a bit of a surprise that you playing villains, you don't tend to come back.
Yeah, it was meant to be the same guy, wasn't it? I think. Yeah, not two different characters. And obviously we're massive Bond fans, like we say, particularly the Timothy Dalton films. We had a poll recently where we decided that we thought his films were the best 2 because there are 6 of us on our podcast. Now, when you were cast, were you expecting to be acting alongside Roger Moore, or did you know it would be Timothy Dalton?
Neither. They were just they were looking at the time, and there were a couple of names that they were throwing about. I remember Ian McShane was one of them. Maybe a few other ones. I'm only thinking of them because I was just watching this American series called American Gods that Ian McShane is starring,
Yeah.
and I just thought, yeah, he could have done Bond. He could have done Bond quite well. He's delicious in American Gods and a good actor. He could have done it. But as it happened, I thought Tim Dalton was a great choice, and it's really a shame he only did 2 because he's just such a strong actor.
So good. I mean, when you were acting alongside him, were you learning on the job as well? Because I mean, he's got a Shakespearean background, hasn't he?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I was very green, I was learning from everybody, right, left, and center.
You mentioned green. I don't know whether you can remember the guy you have a fight with as Necros in the kitchen. Is that guy? He's called Green 4. I think that was his code name.
Such a good fight.
Yeah.
Vaguely familiar.
Yeah. We were saying we think that's still one of the best hand-to-hand fights in the whole series.
It really is, yeah.
Did you have training for the fights? Particular specific training for that?
Well, we had 3 days. We had 3 days to study. I mean, and mainly, obviously, it was Bill Weston, who's a stunt guy who knows what he's doing, and I didn't. So it was mainly me. I guess the fact that I was a dancer really helped. I didn't study any martial arts or anything, but as a dancer you tend to be very conscious on how you use your body, and it's a sort of very good setup to acquire other physical skills quickly. So yeah, we had that training for 3 days. They had already choreographed it, and then it was just a matter of transferring it to the set. I mean, the good thing with film is you can do snippet by snippet.
I think one of the amazing things about that fight is that, obviously, as Tom said, it takes place in the kitchen. So was it even more difficult to choreograph because of, all the different kitchen utensils and different little, things that are used? Do you know what I mean? Like there's like a butcher's saw and stuff that's used.
Yeah, I was really glad. I wouldn't know what would have happened if he hadn't had all the utensils. And the collapsible shelf and all that stuff. No, I thought that was made it easier.
Right. Yeah.
Did you feel obviously having to shoot that, which is a fairly, it's a really elaborate scene, and you've got 3 days to shoot that. Were you feeling the pressure of, trying to get it right and making sure you get all that coverage and things like that? Or was it kind of fairly kind of laid back, or were you always under pressure?
Nah, I was having a blast.
That's what we want to hear.
We know John Glen was obviously the director. He's pretty experienced in the action scenes because he was a second unit, wasn't he, before that? Was he particularly on the action scenes? Did he take the lead and did he have it all choreographed frame by frame?
No. I mean, he didn't do all the actions, and quite a few times I shot with second unit. That's the thing, he may have started as an action director, but when you move on to the first unit, then you leave the second to someone else.
And what's we think that John Glen's quite underappreciated as a director in general, but how does he compare to the other directors you worked with, like Brian De Palma? Is he fairly technical, or does he kind of just let you get on with things?
Well, every director is sort of has its own flavor. I mean, with John, I think it was always palpable that he was an editor. He already cut the film together in his head when you were doing it, which was really great for me because I hadn't had any experience in front of a camera where I had to really pay attention to continuity and so forth. So that helped me pick it up quickly. Brian De Palma is obviously very technical and tends to be, or at least was in those two times. That one time I worked with him, was very hands off. He would sort of he likes to be removed from it all, and I guess what that allows you to do is to get a sort of bird's eye view of everything that's happening. The drawback is that there's no really personal relationship, and I guess it doesn't matter so much when you kind of doing hard action and so forth. It could be more of a problem when you have when you need to tease something out of your actors or something like that. That I can imagine that could be problematic.
You've worked with Ken Russell as well, right?
Say again?
You've worked with Ken Russell, haven't you, as well? Yeah,
Ken was great. Ken was fabulous. Ken was he was one of the few directors who ever had me back. He was great because he did precisely that, right? He was like you could talk to him and he would talk to you and enjoy doing it and making it a little tiny parts that I played in his films, but yeah, I mean, if for the sort of acting bit of the acting, it's great to have someone like that. Action is a bit of a different thing. I mean, different beast, because really at the end of the day, if you don't get your foot on the right ledge, then you have a problem. I have a few scarves to show for that sort of thing. A nail once jumping out of the window and things like that. So there's something to be said for focusing on action in the right scene.
Yeah. Who were you going to say was the other great director? You were going to mention somebody. Not John McTiernan.
McTiernan was nice. I enjoyed working with him. Yeah, I mean, there's no such thing as directors. I mean, there are like there are no actors. Everybody is just very different, and perhaps the director has even more impact upon a film and upon the whole atmosphere on the set, right? So it's technical directors will tend to probably have more technical people around them, and it influences the whole flavor of the shoot. McTiernan was great. I thought he was very universal. He knew the technical stuff, but he could also talk to actors.
We talked to Anthony Stark, who was in License to Kill. Of course, that was John Glen, and he said John was very hands-off with the actors, as in he let them get on with the scenes, particularly the dialogue scenes and the non-action scenes. So were you allowed to sort of create your own character for yourself to bring into the scenes?
Yeah, I do feel that was the case. I mean, considering a couple of aspects, I guess, to consider. Now, one is that the tendency for henchman type characters is that they likely be flat, because they wouldn't be so important in the script. They wouldn't necessarily have any pivotal importance, and so you wouldn't get to learn much about a character's background, right? So that means you see a sort of, typically you just see one dimension, and then it's up to you to try and get something else in, right? And it's not necessarily set up for that, so you have to get it in when you can, I guess. And I did what I could.
Did you kind of develop
John certainly didn't hinder me.
No, good.
So did you create a little sort of background for him? Because I think he's referenced his obviously like ex-KGB, isn't he? Did you kind of come up with this whole kind of background and characterization for him?
Yeah.
Can you remember what you kind of used?
Neglected by his parents. No, I'm sorry, I can't. I cannot. I remember taking this whole thing very seriously, which kind of was nice doing it with Tim, because Tim was taking it seriously after the Roger Moore era, which was taking it all much more lightly. So I studied all this. What makes someone do violent things, and I read all these books on psychology and all that stuff, though. But I'm afraid I cannot get any more details of what might have happened to Necros to turn him into a henchman.
We had lots of different assassination methods and disguises. I mean, this must have been an absolute joy to play that part.
Yeah, it was nice. I mean, maybe he was a suppressed actor. Couldn't make it. Didn't get into acting school. He said, I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna show him.
We've read as well that obviously you had to do so many different accents. That must have been difficult for you as a German guy.
It was impossible.
yeah. I was going to say, yeah. So was some of it you had the voice dubbed? Is that correct?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. No German though.
Especially since neither the Americans nor the Brits know what a real Russian accent sounds like.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we get ours, usually Scottish people like Robbie Coltrane to play our Russians. So yeah. We've also looked at your background, and you're a Zen Buddhist. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. How does that influence your approach to your work?
That's a great question. I've never been asked it, and I'll try and answer it in a way that it won't take too long. So the way that to approach this is to look at it as sort of ego trip. What can I do with this part? What can I bring to this part? How can I make this good? And it tends to all be about me in the end. And that is kind of counter to Zen, because in Zen, the emphasis is on what's not me. So the approach is that you take yourself out of the equation. You take all your projections and all your ideas and all your whole personality out of it, and then start with a clean sheet, and then see, you know, what is really on the page. What is this character like without my little ideas, without my projections and things that, and my filtration of what I like and dislike about it. So it's a much broader approach, and it's actually much more enjoyable. You see what I'm saying? So one is kind of like, I'm starting with my stuff and I'm seeing it through my eyes and my filters, and the other one is we wipe all that clean and start with a completely empty sheet.
Fascinating, yeah. Very different, Andreas. Very good. A lot of your scenes were also with Dutch actor Jeroen Krabbe and the American Joe Don Baker. What were they, big characters off screen as well?
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
Yes. I didn't get to spend that much time with Joe, but I did spend a bit of time with Jeroen in Morocco. I thought, yeah, he was, you know, he was, he's alive, life-loving character, and he was, you know, very artistically minded. You know, while everybody else was sitting around in their trailers, he was actually painting. You know, so creative, a very creative person, and funny.
Good. Was Tim funny?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing you can always count on with Brits, right? They can make you laugh.
Yeah. Deadly serious, no. Yeah, well, another thing we were thinking about is that you must be the only Bond character who's had their own sort of theme song, and you even listen to it on your earphones. I mean, that's amazing.
Is that true?
I think so, yeah. Because you're listening to it as you go into the country place in England, and then you've got it on at the fairground in Vienna, and you know it's a John Barry song that Pretenders are all for you, Necros.
Well, there's quite a few villains who have their own theme. So, but this is the one where there's only, you know, a song that then sort of becomes worked into the theme whenever you're, you know, involved, or whenever Necros was, like, you know, at the fairground, for example, and then of course on the plane, you know, one of my favorite fights in the whole series.
I do remember where they played it to me. They made a point of it, so they were quite aware that that's what they were doing. Right. When they introduced me to everybody, I was in the sound suite, and they played me that song. Said it's going to be playing in your headphones when you kill that.
That's interesting. So the song had already been recorded and obviously, you know, performed and everything.
Yes.
Right. Oh.
See, the John Barry score for The Living Daylights is fantastic. So when you got to see it for the first time, the edited version, maybe at the premiere, was it just all the better to see your scenes with John Barry's music?
Well, I don't know whether I could separate it at the time. I mean, it's such a big thing when you see the thing come together on the screen. You know, you've poured so much into it, and somebody calculated once, it's actually one lifetime of work goes into the making of a feature film. Mm-hmm. And then it's all condensed in 2 hours. So there's just so many overwhelming impressions. I can't particularly say that the music struck me at that time, but I do think that John Barry was a fabulous composer, and I have all the soundtracks, and I listen to them too, and others, not just the Bond stuff. I mean,
so did you get to go to was there a royal premiere or anything like that?
Was there ever? No holds barred.
Yeah.
I mean, it was somewhere on the embankment. and they'd built up this sort of tent city. And these things were at the time were always sponsored by Bollinger, so there was unlimited Bollinger. But they had also built up these. There were all these food stands that had something to do with the theme of the film. So they had Afghan food, and all the and Viennese and all the things that kind of gelled with it. It was great. It was fabulous. And of course, yeah, there was a royal performance before, and some of us were introduced to Prince Charles and Princess Di. So,
what an experience! Yeah, you got to go all around the world filming as well, didn't you? Pretty special. Well,
it could have, some of the other ones went much further, but
jealous. Do you actually went to Morocco though?
Oh yes, we spent a month in Morocco. That was the doubling for Afghanistan. Obviously, that was some of it. The desert part that was beautiful. Yeah, we were in Tangier for 2 weeks, and then in Ouarzazate for the rest of the time. The desert part, stunning.
I mean, Vienna's a beautiful city, but obviously that's quite, well, it's a bit nearer to home, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Pinewood, how long were your scenes filmed at Pinewood for?
Well, the Pinewood, I think that happened, I can't quite remember. I remember I was on the film for about 3 months. A month of that was in Morocco. And then there obviously were various scenes throughout the UK. Some in the Midlands, and Pinewood. I think Pinewood was toward the end. Yes, it must have been toward the end, because I remember when we had shot the bit in the net, the fight in the net between Bond and Necros. I was wrapped. That was the end for me. So I guess they did all the Pinewood stuff then, probably.
How was that scene? I mean, we must think we've said you've had one of the best fight scenes in the kitchen, but this is possibly my favourite end fight with a henchman ever. And it must have been difficult to film that one.
Well, that was the only bit that was really hard work. That was hard work even for someone in good shape, which I was at the time. Yeah, it took 3 days to just do the close-ups to match the shots that they'd already done, the 2 stunt guys. And John had that on a steam bag, so he could match it right by eyesight. We do a bit and fit it in, and if it wasn't right, we kept going. I remember Tim was saying, after an hour we'd been hanging in the net, and we were in these sort of harnesses. It was not like you could just get out and have a rest or something. Once you were in it for a while, and it was a bit of a big deal. We'd just been shooting an hour, and I think Tim asked John, how long are we going to be here for? And John said, well, scheduled 3 days. And Tim said, I'm knackered already.
He was quite a physical presence though as well, wasn't he? He was in decent shape for the action scenes.
Yeah. But I think that was very helpful.
Yeah. So in terms of, the legacy, we recently did an episode on the best henchman, and we sort of covered the entire series, and you were right up there. And there was a Esquire magazine, you came 20th recently, and that's out of all the 104 villains. So you're only 2 places below Jaws, so you're doing something right. Mm-hmm. But what?
Although I have to admit, I think they shouldn't be all lumped together, because there's the henchmen are the executors, right? And then there are the brainiacs, those that have the evil super villains with a master plan. They shouldn't be in the same category, don't you think?
But I think Necros is a bit of both. I mean, he's a KGB agent, doesn't he? He uses his intelligence and his disguise. He's not. That's why I think we love him. It's more than just an average henchman.
That's what I wanted, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. No, he is. He's quite a unique sort of villain in the series, because he's not. I think Henchman does a a bit of a disservice and does you a bit of a disservice, because he's a proper assassin, and uses different methods to like disguises, and yeah. So like one of my favorite scenes, is the at the fairground when he kills Saunders. So I mean, was that how did that scene sort of come together for you, and how much were you involved? Because obviously you're just a sort of bystander. Necros is a bystander operating it via remote control.
Yeah, but I love that. I love that. That's where I got all my close-ups. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
We were in Vienna. We were in the Prater, and they shut down the Prater for us. And we did all that, and then the trick shots obviously were done at Pinewood to match those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. It's just nice, where you can do some acting just with your eyes.
Yeah,
certainly did that. Yeah.
Yeah. Was that your idea? The slick back, blonde hair, really?
Well, it was my idea, but I didn't know that they described the character like that in the script. I guess that probably contributed to my getting the part.
Yes, yeah.
I walked in there with slick back hair, like he looks just like he should.
Because you're almost like a souped up version of Donovan Red Grant from Russia with Love, almost like an 80s version of him, I guess. Very effective.
Was that a conscious thing for you? Would you ever kind of channeling bits of any kind of Bond films you'd seen and thought, actually, I really like that aspect of that henchman or that villain or that character?
So totally not. I mean, you want to be different from everybody else.
Right. Okay. It's more of a case of just trying to avoid the kind of cliches of those characters.
Quite possibly. Although, I mean, I'd seen all the Bonds at the time, and I still have, but it's not that I sort of classify myself as a fan. I mean, I saw them just like I saw everything else that was out there, and I certainly didn't go back to study the movies in order to get something that I didn't do. That's that I guess it can be helpful, but it can also be a hindrance.
Yeah, I suppose there's a lot of baggage, isn't there, when it comes to these films, and they've been around for so long.
Yeah, of course, it's much worse for whoever plays Bond, right? Because that's in a way, it's a horrible part to play. The people that have already played it, you don't want to be compared like, oh, he's like this, but a little bit worse, maybe. That'd be a dreadful thing, right? You certainly don't want that, and you kind of have to make your own mark. But some niches have already been occupied, right? I mean, Sean Connery was the most macho and whatnot. So you want to sort of juggle it and just get it just right. It's hard.
I think it was quite hard for Tim as well, the sort of pressure of the day-to-day being a Bond and having to do the side when you're not acting.
I don't know. I guess it could be. Whether he perceived it that way, I really don't know. I mean, possibly because generally I perceived him to be quite private, and you can only be so private if you're playing James Bond. I mean, there must have been a huge amount of attention on him,
especially when it's his first one, and it's as Bond, wasn't it? It's his debut, so real pressure on him. We think he did brilliantly. But.
Yeah, and the press standing around the corner when you're eating a kebab or whatever. I mean,
yeah.
I always feel that there's a kind of, particularly from the 70s and 80s, that a lot of the same people were kind of part of the same technical kind of behind the camera kind of crew. I always feel that there's like a sense of a family, like John Glen working his way up, and a lot of the same kind of like say the crew. Did you get that you were kind of joining a family?
So absolutely, so much so, and I think it really contributed to everybody being so relaxed with each other. There was never did anybody shout. It was just not necessary. it just gelled so beautifully. Everybody knew what they were doing. They were good at it, and they'd done it together, and it was great. Yeah, I had that. I remember when I was thinking that we were in Ouazzazate, and a bunch of us. That was, I think, the others were all crew. Were playing poker, and I thought, I feel like this is like a family. Everybody's just so easygoing with each other.
And just going back to you mentioning before about you obviously the Zen Buddhism, and do you feel that you're a better actor for that, or do you just think that you would naturally kind of improve with experience and age? Do you think that does have a big impact on, like you said, that kind of clean sheet and being able to sort of really be, and I suppose that's what acting is that it's sort of taking on that other character. Do you feel that you have benefited from those, I suppose, that faith and that kind of skill set?
Yeah, massively. I guess it's hard for me to imagine my life without this, because it's basically it's the tool bag of things, how you deal with stuff, with situations, external situations, but also with internal stuff, emotions and issues and problems and so forth. And I mean, I think you can progress and improve without that, but then you'd have other tools, right? I mean, I think an actor who would feel that he wouldn't be getting better at it would probably eventually quit, because it would be dissatisfactory, right? I mean, everything that has a bottom to it, you get fed up with. You get fed up, and so it's only the things that are bottomless, where you can basically infinitely continue to explore and improve, that keep your attention in the long run. And for me, yeah, I'm really glad I have those tools, and I don't want to go back.
And how long have you been kind of practicing
Zen Buddhism?
Yes.
28 years.
Oh, wow. So for amount of time then.
Seasoned.
Yes.
Yeah. Super.
In terms would I be able to just ask, sorry, I know I'm jumping about a bit, but the fight on the plane, sorry, it's one of my favourite scenes in the whole franchise. So you obviously got the script, and you would have seen that that's a big scene, and Necros's like death, etc. And what did you think when you saw the way that sort of Bond does away with him is that Necros is grabbing onto his boot, and then he uses the knife to cut the laces, and then that causes him to fall off? Because maybe this is just me, but I think in other hands that might have seemed a little bit silly or something. But I think it works absolutely brilliantly, and it's like a sort of genius of Bond moment to get the better of this assassin who, all along, you're wondering how on earth is Bond going to get the better of this guy.
And you want to get that line in, of course, right? He got the boot. I mean,
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
When I read that, I said I want to do the parachuting stunt.
Oh right, yeah.
And luckily they didn't let me.
Yeah.
Do you like the noise, the sort of blood-curdling scream we're obsessed with when you die?
Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible.
Holding the boot, falling out of the plane.
Yeah.
That was my voice, definitely.
Was it? Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
I can do screaming quite well.
You did brilliant. Yeah.
Yes, you certainly did.
Might have that as my ringtone, actually. Yeah. Dear me. There's another great scene. When we were growing up as kids watching it and loving this film, we used to refer to you. We didn't know the name Necros as kids. We just referred to you as the baddie milkman. So, yeah. Was that in the script then, chucking the milk bottles? Yeah. Vinay.
Yeah, that's another really unique kind of disguise and method of killing people and causing destruction that adds to you being an iconic villain in my eyes.
when I went on the publicity tour, and in Germany, they had a big party, and there was a bartender who had created this little milk drink. Just like it.
Dear me.
And were there any kind of, which part of the shoot, or which were the scenes that you have the sort of the most fond memories of, where you thought, like you said, it was obviously a very pleasant kind of experience filming it, but was it like the locations, or was it the fact that, like you mentioned, you felt like you were kind of, I suppose, getting more screen time, or you're actually being asked to sort of act rather than kind of just stand next to someone who's delivering their lines? Was there anything that kind of stands out as that was the most enjoyable part of this production?
I don't think I can do that. There were just so many aspects to this. I mean, considering that the bit of film I'd only done, and certainly never worked on a large movie, on a big budget movie, which is really a completely different ball game. And that extended to not only just the on-screen work, but also off-screen. Dealing with the press, doing the publicity, but also the nice times. I mean, there were a handful of parties in those days, and we had wine for lunch. I mean, believe it or not, at Pinewood, there was like real cutlery, and we would have wine for lunch. Everybody was sitting there. Those were the days.
Wow.
And I mean, it was altogether a large experience, and I kind of don't feel like picking anything out of that. It would sort of diminish the whole the package. I mean, it's kind of strange that after all this time, that this is still, I had no idea this was going to be happening, but this is sort of still with me. I mean, that's why I'm talking to you, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Because that keeps reverberating, and I couldn't have, if you told me this then, that out of 30 odd years or so, I'd still be talking about it. I'd said, no way. But I guess it's an aspect of being part of something that is such a legacy. It's probably the most successful film franchise of all time. I wouldn't be surprised.
And you've got children, is that right? What do they think of their dad? And have they seen those kind of performances? Have they seen those films?
Extraordinarily disinterested.
Oh no! What a shame.
I don't know.
Suppose to them it's normal, isn't
it? They've seen bits of some of the movies, but I don't think they've seen any of them with full interest and from top to end.
Your son likes it, doesn't it, Chris?
Yes. Yeah. Well, well, he's 6 now. He watched bits of Living Daylights, and he really enjoyed it. Obviously, there's a lot of plot going on, but he loved it. He loved it. Looked like you say that it's so iconic, that film. When you think about it, obviously you've got Dalton, you've got the Aston Martin in the snow, you've got the fight, and you're such a striking and imposing figure on the film, because you're very tall, and so you're kind of, and with like say that at the end, where you're wearing those kind of those really tight jeans and those massive boots, you look like
gorgeous outfit.
Yes, you look such a. And for me, it's so iconic to see you on screen. And again, it's not a case of this character who is, there's nothing to him. You take charge of the screen. You have charisma, and you feel that character is a person, as opposed to, like you say, just that guy who stands next to the other guy and then has to beat someone up. And I think it's great going back and watching those films with my son, because he's that childlike excitement in the stunts and the scenes, and also that how exotic it is to go from, like say, Tangiers to Vienna and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's, I suppose, like you say, that legacy's gonna live on, if it's not any kids.
Not for you personally.
I mean, you're quite right. It's been not so long that a couple of people contacted me and said, you know, I was a kid then, and you know, when I saw you do this, I slicked my hair back. So this is, you don't know, right? You don't know how that might reverberate and how what kind of impact it might have on you know, people's lives.
And like you mentioned, like having a body of work as well, that not every actor, you know, can have a very long productive career, but to have, you know, to appear in such iconic films, you know, you obviously can name the three of Living Daylights, Die Hard, and Mission Impossible that will live beyond us, and that's what a great, at least, you know, people will see your performances again and again and go back to those films. I think that
that's really quite remarkable. I mean, you know, I really don't think that I don't look at this as a career. I haven't had a career. I mean, I wanted one, but it didn't really materialize, because when you add it up, the amount of work I've done on screen is really minuscule. It's very, very little. Especially since, okay, the Necros was a big part, but all the other stuff I've done, and at least in all the big features were tiny bits, and sometimes microscopic. You know, much more was on television, and stuff, and in small features that nobody's ever seen or will ever see. But you're right. I mean, it's quite remarkable that why did I end up in three of these massive blockbusters at the time, and I guess it kind of will reverberate. You know, maybe one day my sons will see the films when they get over the fact that I always die.
Yeah. Would you like to play more goodies opposed to all these bad henchmen?
No.
Good.
I mean, good. I think a good baddie is great. You know.
Yeah.
But I don't
much more interesting. Yeah.
I don't really pursue on-screen work any longer. It's just too much effort to get the work, right? It's always more effort. I mean, unless you're famous, it's always much more effort to get the work. And I'm too old for that now. I don't want to do that. So if somebody calls me up and says I got a part for you, then yeah, I'm happy to give it due consideration. Other than that, I just do my own stuff, and that tends to be behind the camera.
I've just got a couple of questions. So would you say that Necros, is that the role that you either enjoyed the most or you know, look back on fondly the most of, and also is that the one that you get recognized the most for, would you say?
Definitely the one I get most recognized for, for sure. It's not all that much. I mean, you know, first of all, I live in Germany these days, and the Germans don't tend to be movie buffs, and they don't pick me up and get autographs. In the UK, it happens now and then. In America, it happens kind of sort of more frequently, and perhaps also for other things. And then you get that occasional person that remembers all the lines that you had in that.
I might be one of those people.
There have been some bits in smaller things that were more demanding in terms of what they were asking for me as an actor, and that's always nice. If I look at the whole package of the experience, the Bond movie was definitely unique. You know, it was my life for 3 months or 4.
You've done a bit of directing as well, I understand, Andreas.
Yes.
Yeah. What's that like? That's totally different.
Totally different, but you know, I always like to tell people what to do. So
good. Yeah.
I have that affinity. I've done some directing for stage, but mostly I'm pursuing sort of. I have a couple of drama things that I want to make, but what's nice about that? Let me just say that. What I don't You know, I view the director as a sort of a hub, and what I enjoy about it is that you can then harness all these people's talents. And there are some people in the film business, there are some people with enormous amounts of talents, and they don't always, you know, they don't gel unless there's someone in the middle who pulls all that together and sort of molds it into a vision. And when that happens, you can get extraordinary things to happen. And that's what it attracts me about being a director, right? You know, I mean, I don't think I'm particularly good at anything, but I'm quite good at getting the best out of people.
Yeah.
And that's something I really enjoy, you know, to put people in the position to give their best and kind of make that into, you know, a nice cake.
Very well put. Just going back to the Bonds again, Daniel Craig's obviously been Bond for quite a long time now. We think some of his performance is owed a lot to Timothy Dalton's. Would you agree with that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you probably have to ask him. I do find that he is equally serious, and he's also, you know, he's also a strong actor. So I guess that gives it a common footing. And yeah, I really enjoy him. I like that. You know, it's kind of, he's taken it. Perhaps he's built on Tim's interpretation of it, in that with Daniel Craig, you can kind of see that he's, you know, that he has aspects of a psychopath as well. That the guy is actually a killer, right?
Yeah.
And the guy is dangerous, and you don't want to get on the wrong side. And then there's that, like, the, you know, that it could be fairly unpleasant to be dealing with this person.
Yeah. Who would you say is your favourite James Bond actor?
Those two.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. You've got to say Tim, surely. You can't not say Tim.
Tim is a fabulous actor. I recently saw Lion in Winter, and I mean, he is just brilliant in it. I mean, if you've never seen it, you should.
Yes.
See it. The old one with Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins, yeah. Anthony Stark, who we interviewed from License to Kill, he mentioned it as well, and just to show how long he's been working, because that was in the was it in the 60s, I think, or early 70s?
I think so. Yeah. 60s.
Yeah. Just incredible.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
We always, you know, we always wish that he'd done. I think you mentioned it before as well, Andreas. More than two, you know, and particularly because there was a gap between License to Kill, his second film, and then the next Bond film, which was released, which was GoldenEye in 1995. It's just, I always think it's such a shame that there was that time where he could have done one or two more James Bond films, and perhaps his legacy would be, you know, even greater than it is.
Yeah. But it is speculation, since it didn't happen that way.
Yeah, of course.
It was meant to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll just keep watching these two.
You never know, right? I mean, isn't it always better to leave people wanting more than to say,
that's true.
Okay,
yeah.
he's enough now.
Yeah.
Next one, please go.
You're right. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Andreas. We've loved speaking to you. It's been a real pleasure talking to you and catching up with you. And yeah, we'll continue to really trumpet Living Daylights and Necros as a character. We love them both, and they've been a great part to the franchise's legacy. So we thank you for that. Thank you for your own personal contribution to James Bond.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time, guys, and good luck to you all.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Cheers.